Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining our little webinar about A2P SMS pricing. My name is Tõnis, and I'll be your host today. So a few words about me. I am managing everything related to connectivity in Messente. This means messages that go past Messente and in charge of the quality so that they actually reach the end subscribers. So today we're talking about pricing. It's a very complex topic. It may seem fairly easy in the discussions that you may have with your service providers, your vendors, in the sales calls, but there's quite a lot that actually goes into it. And this is something that we today want to unravel a little bit and bring some clarity and some technical context as well, how all of this big pot actually comes together. So let's get started. First of all, how are the SMS sent? Excuse me. A little bit of a plan for today as well. We'll start with how is an SMS message sent, what goes into the message price or how it develops, how do providers optimize costs, and lastly, we'll finish up with questions you should ask your provider or even internally in your own team. How is the SMS sent? Fairly simple visual here as well. API, Messente, and the network operator with their end subscriber pool. So I think it's fair or it's reasonable to explain why Messente is in this value chain, firstly. So what we have tried to do is offer a fairly simple API to connect to, which opens up a whole world of possibilities. So we basically act as a gateway from you to all of your subscribers. And this may mean in one country, like in Germany, or this may mean in 20 markets or 190 markets and territories in the world. What happens from the Messente side is that we try to connect directly with as many operators as possible. The technicalities there are a little bit more complex than just talking about one API. There's a specific protocol called SMPP. I won't go into too much detail about that, but it's very SMS-centric, meaning that for you, it doesn't make sense to put in the development resource and work hours to actually enable that type of a messaging protocol to communicate with your customers. Because we in Messente, we have already done it. Meaning we take something very specific, relatively complex, and try to package it in a very simple and easy to use, easy to integrate way. Now, what else is the benefit for using companies like Messente for your communication needs? Is that you have one point of contact. If you have any issues, you have only one person or one company to reach out to. If you need to launch new markets, you can do it with the same person, with the same team, who are there to advise, enable, and support you all along the way. Now, every company who needs to communicate with their customers can go directly to the operators as well. But as I said, this probably is a bit too complex for that to make financial sense. But how Messente is able to send messages to countries where we are not directly connected with all the operators? This is where actually my team comes in, is establishing a partnership pool. We may look at it as connecting different carriers, or even if I already mentioned the network operators, our aim is always to connect with operators directly. Why? First of all, because the pricing and the quality is always the best as possible. But, for example, we don't send as many messages to, let's say, to Chile compared to how many messages we're sending in the Baltics, in Scandinavia, in all of Europe. What does this mean? We try to find specific Messente-like companies who act as our enablers in those specific markets where we are not as, let's say, big of a service provider as they are. Very big part in that is the trust. Because we trust them to use our business to utmost quality and offer us the best insights about market restrictions, regulations, and to advise us how we can advise our customers better. Lastly, one very big part that doesn't often get mentioned is that we need to make sure where we are sending the message. And this is one very, very important part in the overall chain of forwarding messages and making sure that they actually reach the intended end users. This is called MNP service, or mobile number portability service. This is enabled in most of the developed countries in the world. What does this actually mean? It's number portability. I'll bring you a very quick example. If you're based in Germany and you have opened your mobile number with, let's say, O2, but at one point, just as an example, you are not happy with their service quality, or a competitor comes and offers you a little bit better pricing, which is very attractive to you. You have the ability to take your number, port it to other operators' network, and continue using their service moving forward. This is called number portability. Now, what these MNP databases give us is the information in which operator's network the number currently is active. If we wouldn't have that information, then we risk sending the message to an incorrect operator, which may cause quality issues or pricing discrepancies, you name it. So in trying to offer the best quality possible, almost every message goes through this MNP check. Yes, there are countries where number portability is not enabled. In those type of countries, we actually collect as much information as possible for the number ranges which originally are intended for specific operators. It acts in a similar way, but it's just less fluid in time. It's more, let's say, hard-coded. Now, I hope that the idea of how messages are actually sent is relatively clear. It's important now when we move on to where the message cost actually comes from. We start with the basics. SMS unit price. It can range from 0.005 to 25 cents in specific markets. Now, we get asked a lot, why is the message pricing so different in different countries? It has a lot to do with how the operators are actually monetizing this channel. Because A2P SMS is a very specific, usually not the biggest revenue source for the mobile operators, but it's still very developed. It doesn't require as much investment as new products. So it's up to them to price it accordingly, how they see fit. Now, this also raises a lot of questions. How can, in Azerbaijan, one message be valued 20 times more or 15 times more than, let's say, in Estonia or in Latvia? And I have to be honest, I don't have a good answer for that. But what we can see is that with a stable pricing, as we have mostly in Europe, consumers and customers have accepted the normal range of what one SMS should cost, which means that we see, transactional, OTP, verification traffic, but also marketing and all types of communications that SMS as a channel supports and offers very good return on investment. We call them third-party costs. As a company, we cannot say to the operators, that pricing is too high or you should increase that pricing. No, it's there as you could say, a fixed fee for every message we send. Thus, we don't actually benefit from that. It's difficult to even call it revenue in a company like Messente. Secondly, it's not just the unit cost that makes up the SMS price. It is actually a lot what we have done and are still doing with the connection and partnership pool that we have. I brought out here operator interconnection cost and also the thresholds, what it actually means. With most of the operators, if you want to connect with them directly and say that, yes, let's say in Germany O2, every month I send 100,000 messages and I wish to send them now directly to this operator. What usually comes from there is either, yes, you can do it. Here is the unit price. But on top of that, we ask every month, let's say 500 euros from you, just to enable that connection, to enable that partnership or a service. Now, this can range from hundreds of euros to thousands of euros every month. Yet again, there is no, let's say, one concrete fact that it is like that, 500 euros with every operator in the world. No. How it can also be packaged is this minimum threshold. For example, you are required to send minimum 200,000 messages to Germany O2 network to even get the connection with them. Next part. If you're sending 200,000 messages, your unit price is 1. But let's say if you're sending 500,000 messages every month, your unit price can be 10%, 15% lower. Now, how we have tried to build our operator connection pool is to always have the best pricing possible from those operators. Meaning, we have the threshold, optimum threshold of messages we send there every month, that we feel confident that this actually benefits us and our customers as well. In Chile, if we don't meet those thresholds, then we rather opt to using some of the local partners who are meeting those thresholds. Third, I already kind of hinted about it from the operator perspective that they are asking a monthly fee for maintaining your connection to them. Now, there's a lot of work behind the scenes that goes into maintaining the service quality, reliability, service uptime in Messente as well. And yes, we can count it as a, let's say, business expense or managing a service type of an expense. But all of that requires resource. Now, this is something that is relatively easy to kind of miss. And this is also one of the big reasons why we have moved on in our pricing model and introducing more value-based proposition, meaning if you are using our services, here is a fee that we ask from you, and here is the third-party cost or the SMS unit cost that we immediately forward to the operators. This maintenance for connections, ideally, it's very, very simple. But everything can happen. So this is where actually we put a lot of time to offer the best quality possible, especially from the technical aspect. And this comes to, throughput, delays, let's say in big marketing campaign periods like Black Friday, for example, or that your verification codes reach your users less than 20 seconds. Because the user experience for your customers, this is the most important part, especially if they're trying to log on or register themselves on your platform. Fourth, number intelligence cost. This is something that I mentioned previously as well as MNP. Even though it's a very small fraction from the SMS pricing, it's still there. We are not able to make deals with all the country regulators to collect all those databases and buy those databases directly from them. For that, in many markets, we also use third-party suppliers who have made that connection pool and who are not SMS gateway providers or aggregators, as we may also call them, but they are focused only on this type of product that we call number intelligence. Lastly, testing. And this is something where I would actually take a little bit of longer time. In the first point and second, I described how we are connecting with the operators, sending messages directly to the operators, but also at times in many destinations we are using local partners. And I mentioned that the trust there plays a very, very big role. Now, how we can be certain that we can trust those suppliers? Testing. Because we don't want our customers to tell us that something went wrong or the quality dropped or messages didn't reach their end users. We want to know it before it happens, which means every month and every week we do extensive testing on almost all of the providers that we are using globally. This may mean low revenue or low cost destinations. This also definitely means that we test high revenue or high cost destinations. And this is not something that we can do just once, Before we connect with the operator, we test that the encoding, everything goes through smoothly, that we receive all the delivery reports. Yes, this is called testing as well. But we do it periodically, routinely, to make sure that what we are buying is actually what we want to receive. That we can get the optimum quality for all of the routes, destinations that our customers are actually using. This is also very, very important part that we recommend our customers to do. Why? Because it's the easiest way to make sure that your quality, your service provider who is offering you messaging channel is actually offering you something that you initially agreed on. I'm not saying that you should do it every day as we do in Messente or every week, but once per month, where possible, definitely this should be in your task list. In the fear of moving a little bit too fast, let's conclude the first two parts. How are the messages sent? API to a service provider like Messente. We forward them to the operators or to a partner that is connected with the operators in the respective destinations. How we are able to make sure where we need to forward the message? Number intelligence, usually MNP. Where the cost comes from? Unit price, the first. Operator interconnections, having those agreements in place, meeting the minimum or optimum thresholds for the pricing and quality. Maintenance cost of our platform. Number intelligence, as I mentioned, and testing. Now, moving forward, what are the most common ways of optimizing those costs? If we mentioned that in destinations like Azerbaijan or Uzbekistan or even some European destinations, message price for international message can exceed 10 or even 20 cents at times. Obviously, this is can grow into a very high revenue or a very high budgeting cost for our customers. Now, let's focus a little bit how carriers or messaging gateways get the cost lower for them and most often don't communicate that forward to their customers. Alternative routes. What does that mean? To explain it a little bit in more detail, we communicate SMS as A2P SMS, meaning application to person. This is a specific sanctioned channel from the operators, from where they expect to receive all that sort of communication. Thus, it is not allowed to send P2P messages or people to people, phone to phone types of messages over A2P channel. This works both ways, meaning in most of these cases, alternative routes actually mean that the P2P channel is used to terminate A2P messages. This is unsanctioned channels. Why? Because they usually mean that the operator is unable to monetize that channel or is getting paid way less for the same message as they would from the A2P channel. Now, let's focus a little bit why these alternative routes can be good and why they can be bad. And I want to quote here Nick Lane from Mobile Squared. They collect pricing data globally for messaging pricing. And what he said one time really caught my ear was that these alternative routes, or we can call them gray routes as well, they have always been in the industry, in the messaging flow. And one of the reasons there is that they're kind of price checks for the operators. I'll bring you an example. If pricing in Germany would increase 2 times tomorrow, a lot of the messages would move away from that A2P channel to P2P channels. This directly puts pressure on the operators to rethink if it was sensible to increase the price 2x. Ideally, this would happen in a way that if pricing is unreasonably high, more messages move to gray routes. If the pricing is adjusted on the A2P side, then the messages move back to the sanctioned utmost quality and reliability channel. Why those alternative routes can be bad? One part there is, as I already mentioned, unsanctioned, meaning you are not in full control of what is happening with your messages. Some of these channels are SS7s, SIM routes, wholesale, HQs. I won't go into much detail what each of those mean. Probably our marketing team will ask me to do a specific webinar about each of those in the future, where I can share a little bit more context and details about them. But in more often than not times, these channels are not protected by the same legal and regulation-wise restrictions as the official A2P channel. What does this mean? The data that is being processed is not protected the same way as it would with on the A2P side. So if you're sending sensitive information, customer sensitive information, then that means you can actually not be 100% sure that the data, sensitive data, is processed in the correct manner that is expected by GDPR. By this year, we're talking about DORA as well. So, alternative routes. They have their place in the ecosystem of messaging, but they also hold greater risk. One part to come back here as well is the quality that these type of alternative routes are offering. At times, they may be exactly the same as direct A2P channel options. What they usually don't have is the stability in quality. Why? Because the operators are not benefiting from those channels the same way as they do from the A2P. Meaning, they are actively working to block these channels, these incoming streams of messages which shouldn't be there. Meaning, if your business or your communication flow is going to these alternative routes, there's a very high risk that you can't count on the service reliability in the long term. Probably many hiccups can come along the way, your end users not receiving their messages, or them receiving the messages without your brand as the sender name, or you're not in the same manner even in the message content. URLs may be changed or removed, message content can be modified. Why all of this is done is just to bypass the operator filters. Moving forward, and this is something that we view in Messente as one of, and I want to say one of the most hurtful practices that we see in the messaging ecosystem. It's called trashing. What it basically means, you are sending 100 messages. Your messaging provider takes 80 of those messages, forwards them to the operators, but 20 they kind of keep in-house or they don't send them out. To you, they say that all 100 messages were delivered to the subscribers. What do they win from it? The cost of those 20 messages that you are paying and they are not paying for. This can happen in a multitude of destinations, in a multitude of ways. We see it more prevalent in marketing messages or any type of communication that is not verification content. Why? Because probably you're a customer who doesn't receive their verification code when they want to log into your platform or register on your platform. They will immediately let you know. If your end customer doesn't receive a marketing message, they don't know that they were supposed to receive a marketing message. So this is one of the methods that we see has been widely used to optimize the cost on the messaging provider side. This is why you should be very, very critical in receiving offers that are below market cost. Operators usually don't differentiate too much in the price that they are offering that A2P channel to other messaging providers. So if you receive a message offer or pricing offer from a provider that is 15-20% below market rate, that should immediately raise some red flags. Moving forward, other ways to optimize cost. I've brought out lovely 3-letter acronyms here. Quickly going over them. AIT, artificially inflated or sometimes generated traffic. What it means is fraudsters, sometimes messaging aggregators, they generate more verification codes on your platform. Bot registers on your platform, thus entering their incorrect or actually invalid phone number. Message is triggered from your platform. The provider or the fraudster receives that message, bills for that message, but they in turn will not send it out. Currently, we see this as one of the top methods that is eroding the trust in the messaging ecosystem. I won't stay on this topic for too long. Messente, we have been relatively vocal about it, and there's a lot of videos on LinkedIn and a lot of information that you can find about this and do a little bit more of a deep dive. Second is HLR, is home location registry. Now, this is number intelligence part. This is something that is a little bit related to the MNP or mobile number portability databases, but HLR is live ping or information at this very specific time if that number is active, if it's assigned to an end user or a subscriber. And sometimes you can even get the information, is that number currently offline or online? Meaning, is the phone switched on or it's switched off? Or in coverage, not in coverage. Why we have brought it out here is that number intelligence plays a very big part in routing messages. What we recommend our customers, especially the ones who are sending many marketing campaigns, is periodically check your number database. This means remove numbers or users which are no longer active. We do it on our side as well. Not everywhere, because unlike MNP, HLR doesn't have the same coverage globally. There are going to be cases where it's not working, where it gives false positives, and destinations where we can get utmost accurate data from the operators. Now, how we use it is in specific destinations, we check every number if it's currently active or not. If it's not active, then we don't send the message out. What happens is a failed message. Now, what we do with our customers is if we notice that happening with their message or number database, that 10, 15, 20% of messages are caught by the HLR and they are no longer active, we recommend them to remove those numbers or to check those numbers, check their number database, for them to not waste money on invalid numbers. Why I want to emphasize this HLR is the actual communication. We embrace transparent communication. If that it's not done, if you see that consistently 20, 30% of messages from your marketing campaigns are failing, and nobody even hints you why it happens, or the response if you open a support ticket is just the number is no longer active or it's an invalid number, then that doesn't seem like a very good business practice in my eyes. It's all about the communication, the value that we're able to provide. We don't see ourselves as just service providers. We are partners with our customers who use our service. It's in our interest to help them navigate in this world of A2P messaging. That also means advising and educating them in a transparent way of how to optimize their costs in their business that they're doing. Thirdly, I've brought out here OTT. This acronym means over the top. And by over the top, we mean that the message chain starts from customer, second is Messente, but any and partners operators are excluded. Is the rich channel provider, either Viber, WhatsApp, Telegram, more and more are popping up. It's data-based communication. Message is forwarded to the rich channel provider. They, in turn, terminate the message at the end user's phone. Now, this is widely been advertised, talked about, because more and more we see growth in those rich channels. And we absolutely embrace it. We talk about them as well. We incentivize our customers to test out, to enhance their customer communication with those rich channels. Where is the bad part here? Is that if you don't know that your messages are actually terminated over those rich channels. We've seen multitude of cases where verification codes, especially to high revenue destinations where SMS is priced, let's say, 10 cents or more. Verification codes are sent through a generic or a different type of a brand name, which is registered with the rich channel, either in Viber, in WhatsApp. And that is used to terminate your verification code. Why is it bad? It is for the user experience. If they don't know or to expect receiving their login code or verification code over some totally different application than just receiving it in their SMS inbox, this can result in very bad user experience. I, for example, have mainly switched off notifications from those messaging apps. But that's just me. Now, concluding the last part a little bit, we talked about alternative routes. Why they can be good, leverage pricing pressure on the operators to have sensible pricing. Bad, you are not in full control of your messages and you cannot be certain of the quality and stable service that you are expecting. Trashing, something that is very, very bad and eroding the trust in the messaging ecosystem. AIT, HLR, rich channels. Now, let's move on to the last part. What to ask from your provider to make sure that you are getting what you were promised. I would actually start this segment. I don't have any other slides, so feel free to not switch off, but just hope you're still listening. I would start this from this a little bit from an internal perspective. Ask yourself or your technical team how you are measuring your service quality that you're getting. This is what we implore all of our customers to do, either new potential customers or existing ones. How do they measure quality? We see more often than not that quality number one measurement is the delivery rate. If most of the messages, let's say 90, 95, close to 100% of messages are shown as delivered to the end subscribers, that means the quality is very, very good. Perhaps not. I mentioned trashing, AIT, rich channels. So how to measure the quality has to be from a little bit of a different perspective. Conversion rate for the verification codes. How high is it? How many messages are sent for one verification? If that coefficient is more than 1.3, meaning every user is getting on average 1.3 messages to verify themselves on your platform, that should already raise some red flags. For marketing side, what is the click-through rate? How many people are clicking on the URLs, on the call to action that you have put into the message content? This, of course, can vary, depending on the campaign, depending on how often you are sending marketing messages. There's a multitude of factors in there. But probably only you can set this pattern that you are seeing. What is the foundation of what you are comparing everything else to? If you see a big variation in that click-through rate, that most probably means that something is being done with your messages that is actually not benefiting you. Second, be bold to ask how your service provider is terminating your messages. Be specific. Ask, where do you have your operator connections? You can even ask for proof. How many different partners you are using for destinations where you are not directly connected? I'm not saying that using partners in some of these regions where you don't have direct connections with the operators is a bad thing. Absolutely not. But if you are jumping between different partners at all times, that means there is some incentive or risk in quality that may happen. Be specific about these things. Ask, how often do you change the routing in, let's say, my core destinations? If we're talking about Germany, are you sending the messages directly to the operators? If not, how many different partners are you using for one operator? Is their pricing different? How much you're jumping around in between? How much are you testing your routes? Lastly, be very specific in asking these types of questions. It's easier to ask more details because if you're doing everything by the book, as we try to do in Messente, it's very, very simple to answer these types of questions. If there is lots of, political replies to these types of questions, in my opinion, that immediately shows that something is not being told or something is not 100% correct. One final remark. Testing. Why I emphasize it so much, and don't take it lightly. I think it's very big part that is under-communicated with customer communication between Messente and our customers, or any other relationship similar to that. Being certain what you are buying is what you want to get. That can only be confirmed with testing. If the trust is built between your service provider and yourself by doing all those previous steps that we talked about, asking those questions, making sure how your messages are being terminated. Yes, it's absolutely fine at one point to test a bit less, but keep testing in your task list. If you receive 15, 20% price offers below market rate, be very, very cautious. And feel free to check our website. We have now published international direct level pricing on our website. Take that as a reference. Of course, I'm not going to say that all the pricing that we have published is the lowest possible price on every market, because we are not connected with every operator globally. But take that as a reference point. If the offer you receive is 20, 30% lower, ask those questions. Now, a little bit over time, but I'll take your questions now. Let's see what pops up. How often does it make sense to renegotiate or reevaluate the message costs I'm being offered? Reasonable would be once per year, not more often. Why I say once per year is that in some destinations we can predict, like in Norway, relatively good example, we can predict that almost every January pricing increases roughly 7 to 10%. There are destinations like UK, Sweden, where we know that yes, the pricing will increase during the year roughly 7 to 10%, but it happens in bits and pieces. Every operator increases their price in a different time. By the end of the year, the average price has increased, similarly to Norway, 7 to 10%. Now, how this is communicated to you can be a little bit triggering that you want to negotiate those prices more often than once per year. But what is better? There is no golden rule here, but I would emphasize that once per year usually gives the best average argument to talk about prices. I hope that was sufficient. Many of the precautions you mentioned regarding sending SMS data and providers could be mitigated by using channels that allow for more automation and control, such as WhatsApp and the OTTs you mentioned. Do you think we will see a migration and increased usage of these channels in the future? Absolutely. I think it makes perfect sense that these rich channels increase in usage. I'm not saying that the SMS will start falling. Probably not, because it's so easy to understand, so hard-coded into our daily usage of our mobile phones. Secondly, those rich channels, they kind of work as a monopoly as well. So at one point in time, or can we be sure that in a certain point in time, they are actually worse for the ROI compared to SMS that we see on the messaging side? That's also actually one of the reasons what you brought out there is we offer in Messente one API for all of the rich channels. If you want to use WhatsApp, Viber, or SMS, or use all of them at once, depending on the destination, you're able to connect with one API. And I agree, transparent communication and advising, telling you the pros and also some of the cons for these rich channels is very, very important. What's the cheapest and vice versa most expensive market to send an SMS out? What's the price difference? The cheapest that I know is Colombia, is something around 0.000, so 3 zeros after the dot, 5 to 8 number in that range. So closely, almost free. The most expensive markets, on average, I think I would say Azerbaijan, but we've seen some price increases happening in very specific operators that have already exceeded 30 cents per SMS. But I think on average, Azerbaijan is the most expensive, roughly around 24 to 25 cents per message. How can I check if the provider trashes my messages? Testing. One thing that we usually recommend to do is do A/B testing. So what does that mean? Not just send a message to your own phone or to your colleague's phone once per month or once per week or with every campaign, but take an alternative service provider. Send out the same campaign. Basically, divide the campaign 50% with your current provider and 50% with an alternative provider. See if there is a difference in conversion rate, in click-through rate, whatever measurement you can to take. A/B testing. In my opinion, that's the way to go. So that's it with the questions. Thank you everybody for joining. We'll share this episode as a podcast as well, so that if some of you or some of your colleagues couldn't join today, you can share it with them. And if you have any additional questions or would just like some more insights about A2P pricing, about messaging in general, feel free to add me on LinkedIn and get in touch. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.